Hi everyone, I'm Catherine, the artist behind Bigelow Fine Arts. Back to the apples from Kirby Rosine's Worlds Within Worlds, and I am finishing everything off today. First, I want to finish off the apples on the right that I didn't quite finish off in the last color along session. I'm coming in with the light cadmium red to continue blending the color down from the top into the bottom, more yellow area of the apple. I do go between the yellow stripes to help preserve some of that color. I then gently work the color around the highlight and down onto the bottom of the apple where the yellow meets with the red. For the most part, I have been coloring with the curve of the apple. This gives a little more texture to the apple if I have all my pencil strokes following the curve. It is a little thing, but worth doing. I go through and do the same thing with the other apple. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps keep you informed of when I post new videos, as well as join in on the color-alongs. I have palettes and timestamps in a Patreon post, so go check that out if you want the whole list of colors. And if you missed out on my free coloring page, be sure to check out the cards for some playlists, including the one to get that and color along with me. Subscribing is the best way to learn more about freebies like that. Onto the stem, and for that I will be working it up very similarly to how I worked up the branches. I begin with a layer of the raw umber over the stem and bit of branch. I then come in with walnut brown to blend the stem into the branch further up and touch up the shadows. Back to the apple, and I come in with the dark red to try to get the top of the apple even darker. I am building contrast here, but I am also building up the color too, as I do want the top to be even more red. I add in a layer over the highlights, again to keep filling them in even more and to keep blending out the edges. For the yellow striping, I add in more dark Naples ochre over them to work them up a little more. I also go a little in between them to help the blend. And now it is touching up time. Some of this will go quite quickly, some of it not so quickly. I begin with the sepia and go through and touch up a lot of the shadows, a little here, a lot there. It is a fine line to walk as I want the shadows to be darker and the contrast higher, but I don't want to go too dark as it will look strange, so I want to make sure the shadows match with the rest of the picture. This is why I go through and do the touching up all in one big shot. I will go through and add in more, lean back and take a look to see if there is somewhere else I need to add more, or if I added in enough. For the core, I realized I never really got the right side darker, so I added in a layer there. It is light, but it is there. The little trees in the ground all get a major touching up as I felt this area was way too light when I finished. I start between the trees first, then I'll go through and do the foliage as well. I bring in the dark green to darken up the foliage even more. I first add in a layer over the areas where the shadows are, basically where I added in more sepia, but I also feather it out more. Already it makes a big difference to the shape of the canopy. If you've made it this far and have enjoyed coloring along with me or just watching this page come to life, I'd appreciate it if you'd give me a like and subscribe to stay informed of when I post more videos. It really helps me out. Patreon has a short write-up, my palettes, and a list of timestamps, and I've made them available for everyone. If you have any questions or page requests, please leave them below or reach out to me on social media. I put in a list of chapter breaks in the show notes, as well as a list of equipment I like to use. If you use any of my affiliate links, it really helps me out without costing you a thing. I post 3 times during the week, and subscribing is the best way to stay in the loop. Plus, if I post more free coloring pages, you'll be one of the first to know. Next, I come in with the May Green to add in a layer over the whole canopy. This helps darken up the highlight areas of the foliage a little more. I still want to preserve some of the contrast here. With a light phthalo blue, I touch up a few of the sky bits between the trees as well as a little around the core, a few spots where the coverage was lighter than other spots. Back to the core, and I wanted to add in more rust as the core was looking a little pale. I bring in the terracotta and add in a light layer over everything, then I go through and blend that out with cream. I bring in more terracotta to darken it a little more as well as add in some to the ground below, so it will feel like it is part of the apple and not just dirt. I blend that out with more cream. I add in more contrast to the trunks with walnut brown. I keep the color to the darker areas, like under the foliage. Come back in with more sepia to keep touching things up, things I might have missed or overlooked earlier. For the woman, I decided to use most of the colors I already had out, so I gave her a blue apron and hat. With the terracotta, I colored in her basket. I blended that out with the raw umber, then I put some on her arms, face, and hair. I then darkened up her hair with a little walnut brown as well as add a bit of shadow to the basket. I blend out her face and arms with some ivory, then come back with the raw umber to get her legs, then blend that out with ivory too. I used the deep scarlet red on her dress, just a light layer as I didn't want it to be bright red, more of a light red. I blend that with ivory too, along with everything else, just to soften the colors. I used some May green for a little bit of foliage I missed earlier and a touch of pine green to give a little shadow. I try to add in some shadows to her with the sepia. It is a small area, so it's just a line here and a spot there. For the echidna, I begin with the sepia to get a little shadow going. I come in with the raw umber to fill in the echidna and a little terracotta for the quill tips. I blend all that out with ivory. With the permanent green olive, I begin to go through and touch up the leaves more, blend out the shadows a little more, accentuate some of the lighter shadows, and darken up the bottoms of the leaves just a little. I also touch up the canopy of tiny trees a little more as well. With the raw umber, I fill in the 2 holes with a little bit of branch showing through that I missed earlier. I noticed them while working up the sky, but didn't want to fill them in with sky since it was clearly branch showing through. I darken up the apple stem a little more too. Finally, I come back in with the light phthalo blue to darken up the center just a little and to help make the layer of color smoother, as it was a little rough in spots. And that is it. I hope you followed along with me. This was a fun picture to color. Thanks for joining me today. Let me know below or on social media if you colored along. I'd love to know how you did. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, MeWe, and Patreon. I want to thank you all so much for coming along and joining in with me on this coloring journey. I appreciate all my subscribers and look forward to more of you joining in and coloring along with me. Please like, share, and subscribe to help that happen. Until next time, happy coloring!